John Street, and you're watching PAX 8 Live.
Welcome to Academy Live. Welcome to Technically Unraveled.
Welcome to the game on PAX 8 Live. This is James Davis from the PAX 8 Academy again.
Academy Live is really designed to empower MSPs to learn and grow the way that best suits them.
How to grow and mature your business on demand, instructor-led, peer and coaching.
We talk about all the cybersecurity shenanigans you need to be aware of.
That's when you really need to know, are they security conscious?
Technology businesses and
Inspiring our audience to work on their business.
Understanding what made businesses tick.
I'm really excited to talk about this course.
How can we make an MSP more efficient and make them better at serving their clients?
How do we not screw it up? We do the basics well.
PAX 8 is laser focused on helping our partners grow, get efficient, and reduce risk.
Ask yourself, what are you going to do differently tomorrow to grow your business?
We look forward to seeing you next time. We'll see you then.
Are you guys excited? Are you ready to start beyond?
Who's coming to Beyond 24? You want a little more?
I think folks are really excited about what they can do with their customers and how they can help grow their business.
It's a massive opportunity for all of you.
Cheers to the channel community.
What's up, everyone? Happy Friday, and welcome to the game on PAX 8 Live, the show where we cover all the cybersecurity shenanigans you need to be aware of for the last week. In today's episode, we're going to be joined here in a bit by Scott Augenbaum, a former FBI agent. He's going to talk with us about cybersecurity mindset. I think it's going to be a great episode. Before we do that, let's do the housekeeping. Please engage with us in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, we can pull your chat right into the show. So if you're not on YouTube, join us on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Don't forget to sign up for PAX 8 Beyond, and let's jump straight into the news.
Man, Dom, I guess we'll just address the giant elephant of spy glasses in the room, but I know everybody's wondering, and yes, I'll say it. Humans age, and then you get... No, that's not cool. That's cool. You getting older too then, Dom? I see how it is. I got glasses. I unfortunately now am being forced to use glasses, but those are definitely Eric glasses for sure. Oh, man. Okay, so we've got some good news. Not that Matt's getting more blind as he gets older, but certainly that we have a public decryptor key released, which is always great, right? You love seeing this. So, Dom, if you want to take us through this one, we'll get started on the news.
Yeah, so this one is pretty cool. According to Copilot, you pronounce this Rishida, which I'm not quite sure that's correct, but we'll just trust the AI on that one. But a Rishida ransomware encryption tool has been publicly released and detailed in a preprint paper by South Korean researchers. The Rishida decryptor takes advantage of a vulnerability in the ransomware's encryption process, enabling the process to be reverse engineered to recover files. So the researchers from Kookmin University and the Korea Internet and Security Agency, or KISA, which I would assume is much like CISA, they developed a method to predict the encryption keys generated by the Rishida, as well as the order in which the malware encrypts files, which is pretty cool. And the method is incorporated into a free automatic decryption tool available on the KISA website. So that's probably enough of the article. This one's pretty interesting. It was done by public threat researchers, which was awesome. They found some system time related vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
It uses some level of micro time to generate a code or a key.
Yeah, like so, in any time you're doing encryption, you want to try, and Dom, I guess you're more the expert on this than me, but you want to try to make the pieces of that encryption not something static or discoverable or manageable.
Predictable.
And predictable. In this, they did system time as a component of the actual encryption key, which meant they had this known fixed point.
By definition, it's highly predictable, by the way.
Yes, that becomes extremely epoch time happens to the atomic level, as a matter of fact, right? Yeah. So, yeah, it became very easy
to be fair,
to come up with that.
Generating a random number is one of the hardest things to do in computing. Like, computers are not meant to be random, nor are humans, by the way. Humans cannot think of random numbers. There's a whole probabilistic table of what number you're going to think of. If I say guess
42,
number between
you
1
mean
and
it's
10.
not going to be random every time I use that? You're blowing my mind now, Dom.
No. So
okay. All right,
we use, like, the wind and the decay of radioactive materials to generate random numbers. Like, it's not an easy task. So, but they could have done better than system time. And it's always great news to see when there's tools that people can consume to get their data back.
Yeah, and that's what the what is of this, which is ultimately, if you've been hit by this ransomware, perhaps you maybe restored from backup, but you had this lost X days, or you had something else that you needed from a contextual perspective, there may be now an opportunity to decrypt that data based on these tools that are coming out, right? And so I think that's just something to think about, is every time you see one of these decryptors, it means somewhere someone is going to have the ability to restore something they didn't have the ability to restore before, weren't going to pay the ransom for, or perhaps the infrastructure is already spun down now and there would be no path back. And anyway, so it's always great when we see these. The FBI's had several iterations where they've found it, but in this case, this one was found through a research team in Korea. Right, I'm finding some vulnerability in the way it was time-stamped. And as you saw in that article, they actually built on their knowledge, and this happens a lot too. They learned one thing about it. Hey, kid, this isn't really random about these files. What's happening here? And then, okay, now there's these other non-random components that are tied and ultimately prove that it's system time origin. Anyway, so great right up there, and great for everybody that needs that. So, all right. Now we have the other side of that coin. We wanted to start positive today and then go to the other side, but this one kind of speaks towards how international this challenge really is, right? Is in this headline we have ransomware attack knocks 20 Romanian hospitals offline. And what they're really getting to is there's this centric service called the Hippocratic, right? So you think about Hippocratic Oath, right, from that origin. Information System, or HIS, Hippocrates, I guess probably in the way you'd say that. But used by hospitals to manage medical activity and patient data, impacted at least 21 hospitals, forcing them offline. And that's just because they were reliant upon this one central service. But if you're thinking about risk impact, you have to start analyzing where's my largest risk and where are those single reliant points. The attack launched over the weekend targeted the production servers running HIS information system, resulting in the system's database being encrypted. I love this, like, just instant jump over to, and then they were encrypted. Like, that was it. Just, and then they were encrypted.
It's just
poof. Then you saw Sally, took her hand, and then they were pregnant, right? And you're like, no, there's other steps as part of this, I think. But anyways, there's no information on what ransomware operation targeted them. They're investigating the incident. Advancements in healthcare industry like remote health, EHR, and the Internet of Things has provided cybercriminals with more opportunities to attack the sector. Yeah, no truer statements.
Perhaps.
Right? So, and the point is, this is Romanian hospitals taken down. This is a crime of opportunity, a crime of money, a crime of those things. And we brought somebody brilliant to talk about crime later. Like, I'm getting through this because I know I'm the least big persona that's going to be on this show today, so I get to be like Big Matt today until our guest shows up, because he's amazing. Let's get to the talking about this, Dom. Like, ransomware groups attack hospitals, attack all kinds of things, but this isn't just a U.S. problem, right? This is global, isn't it?
Literally anywhere there's a connection to the internet, right? Like, that's the target space that threat actors can function in, unless they're state sponsored and they probably don't act in their own country. But in general, there's literal billions and billions of things that you could choose to attack that are connected to the internet, and a lot of those things have little to no network layer protection. There's no edge on a lot of these things, which is an even bigger problem. That's where the OT attacks are coming into play in critical infrastructure. And I would reckon a lot of that's the same at hospitals and large healthcare facilities. There's a lot of ways into a network. A database level encryption is interesting, and that could be poor writing on the part of the reporter. But if they did truly target and encrypt the database, that's an interesting concept. Was it done remotely? Was there an on-server payload? I'd be curious to know.
When you get into it, Dom, like how broad is a hospital network? Like how many? I had the largest concentration of VPNs, site-to-site level VPNs at a hospital, right? Why? It's because they have all the HL7 interfaces. They have all the other things that you're going to take that data over to, right? And so they have these connections. Now, to varying degrees, they've had firewalls that are great or not, independent of that, right, in that network. And other than that, you also get into people are slow to patch. You have limited budgets on the infrastructure and the humans there. You have limited cybersecurity response capabilities. And really, as Scott's going to get into, you really get down to it's often the basics. It's often the mindset. It's often not even there and proper. People aren't set up to succeed. They are set up to fail. And so, which brings us to another failure that we'll talk about. And this one, I think, can be a probably pretty big one, but it also, I think, Dom, shows something positive happening in our world with respect to transparency, with respect to some of that. So let's tackle that. Dom, why don't you run this one real quick, and let's take a look at this news article.
Prudential Financial, real small financial firm. They don't do a whole lot of business.
Yeah, never heard of them. They're like this little baby company.
Right? Breaching a data theft cyber attack. So Prudential Financial disclosed that its network was breached last week. I believe we found this article a couple days ago. With the attackers stealing employee and contractor data before being blocked from compromised systems a day later. So leading global financial services, Fortune 500 company, 1.4 trillion with a T in assets, provides insurance, retirement planning, wealth management, et cetera, to 50 million customers across the U.S., Asia, Europe, and LATAM. So second largest life insurance company, et cetera. But this is the interesting part and probably the cool part. In an 8K form filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, earlier today, the company revealed that it detected the breach on February 5th after the attackers gained access to some of its systems one day earlier on February 4th. So as today's report, we believe that the threat actor, who we suspect to be a cybercrime group, accessed company administrative user data, et cetera, et cetera. It's probably enough of this article, but obviously, this is a staggering breach. That's a lot of customers, which means there's a lot of employees. We don't quite have the scope of that impact yet, but they reported it to the SEC on their 8K. You know, why did they do that?
Yeah, that's what's so good about this, right? And I say good, take it with a grain of salt, that there are, even as we talk about this, constitutional arguments of whether the SEC is constitutionally allowed to even do what they're doing right now around collecting this evidence and information for the shareholders. Like, this isn't even really finalized, but let's just say as of this year, you now had to, or late last year, you now had to file a Form 8K for any type of incident you think will materially impact shareholders, right? And so you start looking at this. Some of the earlier thoughts on this that were tossed around, and even right now in some of the guidance that we're seeing come out in FAR, you're starting to see these like super short timelines of reporting, right? You notice here they detected on the 4th, they made this report in the last few days. So you're looking at less than 10 days of them even being able to investigate and dig into this challenge, right? And figure out like what's going on. Some of the reports ask for 4 hours, Dom. Like, you don't even know what's going on. The paint's not even wet, let alone dry yet in that first 4 hours. So anyways, for me, I think the positive that's coming out of this, though, is we are seeing early disclosure. I believe we're trying to see transparent disclosure of what we know and what we don't know. And just because they say we don't know or we're digging into other systems, they probably are. They're digging into gathering the forensics.
Oh, in that time
getting
frame,
800 out. Yeah, 100%. So anyways, any thoughts on this, Tom, to close it out? And then we'll jump into
I would just
Robin's
say,
stuff.
Even if you're not a publicly traded company, right? Like, you should be disclosing, first of all. And I do think there's a level of responsibility you have, whether or not you're legally bound. But it's not a bad thing to disclose with the information you know, even if the information you know is really limited. Like, you can and should come out and say, hey, we're experiencing an incident. We don't yet know the impact, but we're on it. We're going to figure out what's going on here, and we'll share more information when we have it. And so long as you do share more information when you have it, and you're humble and you're transparent about it, I think, for me at least, that shows a lot of good faith, right? That you give a shit and you realize that something's gone wrong and you're trying to address it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And I think to your point, though, is disclosing knowledge what you have, say what you don't know, but that you're also digging into it and you are investigating this. You have public trust in play. People are investing their livelihoods, their retirements, right? They're trusting in these companies to be forthcoming in their public
$1.4 trillion
trust.
worth, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, just a couple. Yeah, just a couple dollars. So I like seeing this here. I think it was to the point. I don't think they overspoke and I don't think they underspoke. So I'm a fan of what we're seeing so far. I'd love to get your opinion in the chat. Tell me if you think I'm an idiot on this, please. But I think Prudential's doing the right thing. Dom, you had one more thing you wanted to tackle, and I'm okay if we bump this back just a little bit, just because I like making Scott wait just a smidge anyway. Just a smidge. And it's fun. I have only that power in life. Yeah.
I was browsing on LinkedIn as one does, and Jacob Horn was doing what Jacob Horn does. And he was asking the question, after all these years, is the CMMC finally going to come to roost? And then he brought up the point, and I forgot the actual number, but something like 5 times or 12 times the amount of rules get passed and enacted by the federal government in an election year, which makes a lot of sense. There's about to be an administration change, perhaps, which would lead to a dramatic change of opinions, probably at the top. So when you're risking administration change, I think if you're a government official, you try to get ahead of that. But it got me thinking, and I do think this is the year that CMMC lands. I think the final rule comes out, and I think it gets put into production, if you will.
I would say skips in. I don't know about lands, but skips in on its belly.
It's a little choppy.
With crushed and crippled landing gear, but let's call it skips in.
Skips in. But Matt, we were talking about this, and you brought up an interesting conversation you saw with Jacob about the
False Claims
FTC
Act,
and the False Claims Act.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the other things you and I made a prediction on back in October of 2021, right? This is when this, they stood up on stage for the DOJ and said, we are going to start using, under the Civil Cyber Fraud Initiative, the False Claims Act from 1863 to sue on contracts with the federal government in places we pay money as a methodology. They did $2.2 billion in lawsuits in 2022 in that subsequent year, and we've seen it. But what was really interesting that came away, and if you're not following Jacob Horn and some of the stuff that's been put out from that compendium, you should be. But they talked through some of the legal aspects. This is actually known lovingly as Lincoln's Law, right? And it was known as that was generated there. And it's been updated a couple times, 2010, I think it was, 2009, 2010. But it's just an interesting play. And one of the things that stood out was this concept of not having to have knowledge necessarily of something being wrong to actually still be responsible, right? Where ignorance, you said it well in the pre-show, where ignorance is still not bliss, right? Like it's completely still illegal. And anyways, so they've been wielding that weapon very well. And there's just 2 great episodes, one about this kind of CMMC Day of Reckoning that you watched, and mine that was around this, centered around the False Claims Act that I've been talking about on stage for almost 2 years, right? So anyways, we have such good guests. We've already made him wait long enough, and he's probably going to make me pay for that when we get into the origin story. But that's okay. It's why I love him. Let's get to Robin Harris's kind words and wise words about QR codes, which Dom really triggers me. So we're going to see where we go with this. It's going to be fun. All right.
Let's talk about convenience. And one of the convenient technologies that hackers have figured out how to exploit are QR codes. It's kind of convenient just to take your phone and scan this thing, and now you're off and running to wherever you need to be, or you're ordering your lunch, or you're doing something, right? But what happens when that QR code has been corrupted and is actually turned into malicious code and you just scanned it? So here's what I'm going to suggest. Sometimes convenience is very expensive. And sometimes convenience will cost us more than it could have ever saved us. The few extra minutes it took to type the website in or to go to the menu and to place the order, right? And I'm going to tell you what happened. It was in a restaurant. And what they did is, you know how they have the QR codes and the menus on the table? Well, the bad guys, what they did is they replaced the legitimate QR code and just taped over their own QR code. And just as the woman went to tell the person not to do it, because I think this was a person that worked with the government, if I'm not mistaken. So this led to some things going very wrong. But just when she was telling her, don't, she scanned it. She was hacked. It was over. Nothing she could do at that point. And really, I was just looking in the kitchen and I was looking at something that came in the mail and it was about some fitness thing. And I'm like, I don't know where this thing came from, but it had a QR code on it. I was like, oh no, I'm not scanning that thing. I have no idea. It could have been a flyer left on the front porch or in the mailbox or something. I have no idea where that document came from. I am not scanning that QR code to find out. So you think about, at the mall or whatever, they put the flyers on the cars and, get this great discount, scan this code. Oh no, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, the bad guys count on us being a little lazy and wanting things to be convenient. And I mean, I get it. It's easier to just do that. But yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. Unless you are absolutely 100% sure that that is the original, legitimate QR code, don't scan it. That's my advice.
Always be aware of where the QR code comes from, and even then, you're often not set up for success, right? You could have a link shortener, you can have all kinds of stuff, but
so
let's bring
real quick
on,
story before we bring Squad on. So the Super Bowl last year, not this year's Super Bowl, there was a QR code, and it was from some janky QR code provider. Most televised event on the planet, most watched televised event on the planet, and it was compromised. The entire audience of the Super Bowl got a compromised QR code. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's fair. It happens, 100%. All right, well, let's hear more about cybercrime, since we have probably one of the foremost early players in this world with us, and I'm honored to bring on Scott. So let's bring Scott in and let him tell his backstory. Scott, please introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are, and maybe make fun of me. It's possible.
There's plenty of time to do that. Well, hey, guys, thanks so much for having me on. I'm Scott Augenbaum. I'm a retired FBI agent. Had an amazing 30-year career, spent the majority of my career on the investigation of cybercrime. Back in the day, we used to go after overweight teenagers who were balding and wore really thick glasses and everything like that, who were making legal access into NASA and public health and all that stuff. And I used to just put my arms around these guys and I go, you know what they're going to do to a guy like you in prison? And I don't know. That's how they always cooperated. So Matt, why don't you explain how me and you met?
Well, I think, as I remember it, I was adding significant value to a stage presentation.
As your attorney, don't talk anymore.
Okay, my bad. I'll stop. How do you remember it? How do you recall us meeting?
No, it's great to be with you guys. I'm a retired FBI agent. Love listening to your show. You bring so much value, and really had a great career within. I started with the FBI. I was 20 years old because my mom filled out an application to become a file clerk with the FBI. 1988. She's 88 years old. To this day, she says my success is all due to her because she found a way to keep me away from my pothead friends, as she likes to call when I was in college and high school, and I couldn't hang out with them because I was, I had to be responsible. Became an FBI agent when I was 26 years old, sent to Syracuse, New York. If you asked me to define the role of an FBI agent in the 90s, it was easy. Bad people did bad things to good people. Criminals, that is. And what did I do? I worked with state and local cops. We put bad guys in jail. What a fun and exciting job for this 26-year-old kid from Brooklyn, New York, a gun, a badge, a bulletproof vest, playing cops and robbers with his friends. Let's get the record straight. I didn't go into the FBI to work cybercrime. I didn't go into the FBI to do public speaking, but somehow it happened. I got sucked into the world of I don't even want to call it cybercrime. It wasn't called cybercrime because in 1998, the National Infrastructure Protection Center was formed, the first government interagency to fight critical infrastructure protection. not cybercrime. And since I had advanced skills in 1998 as a FBI agent in cyber, I became that guy. So, Dom, what do you think? What's advanced cyber skills in 1998?
Oh, war dialing.
That's even too advanced. Come on.
I'm thinking
Mac.
Excel. I'm thinking you had
America
Excel
Online.
capabilities.
I was the only guy who
Oh,
knew
you
how
were
to use
AOL connected?
Oh.
Oh man, that's hot. That's the new hotness.
Oh.
Yeah,
Because-
yeah.
Because back in my day, Windows 95 came along, and and when I was growing up, the only women who used DOS didn't date very much in high school and college or stuff like that, and the internet became very easy to use. So I became that guy, and I didn't want to be that guy. It wasn't the cool and fun and sexy job to have, and I was chasing thrill seekers and amateurs in the 90s. Cyber takes a sinister turn. Probably about 99, credit cards are online, and now the bad guys go after the money. The events of September 11th changed the FBI forever, and counterterrorism is number one. Espionage is number two. Cybercrime is number three. I go into the FBI cyber division in 2003, and all my friends make fun of me. They tell me the cybercrime problem is going to go away probably by 2006 because it's going to be solved by a lot of smart people in technology. And let me ask you, both of you, how's that working out for us today?
It's not, but I will pause. Oh. I will pause for a few comments because not to start the FBI on FBI beef, but there's a gentleman named Darren Mott in my LinkedIn channel that says, "Here comes the filibustering." When you came on this show, Scott, so I just wanted to put it out. He also added that he's 7
seconds of my time. Tell Darren, get to work. He's working for a government contractor, sitting around twiddling his thumbs, and Tom.
He also says, the reverse questioning. He does that to me all the time. So here we find ourselves being reverse questioned by Scott about the situation. I love it. I love it. Well, then you know what? You drive. What's next, Scott? What do we want to talk about? You keep going.
Why is this your show? No, I asked you a question. Is that working out for us? I mean,
we are absolutely not successful with that current methodology today. Right?
I hate to say
we have
it.
Because it's not a smart person problem. It's a human problem. Right? I think that's the challenge of it.
Yeah,
anyways, not to trigger you. But,
that. And Darren, good friend of mine, retired FBI agent, has a great podcast. He's been in the battlefield with me with this. And Darren and I were dealing with these things as FBI agents because we both led cyber squads. And, we come out here and we're in the field and we're dealing with a lot of different issues. And it's always the same thing over and over again. And during my career, I've interviewed probably 1,000 victims. Darren's interviewed thousands of victims, and they all come up with a couple of commonalities. And I want to run this by both of you in the audience. First of all, and let's think about it, none of my victims ever expect to be a victim. Why would anyone want to target?
Yeah.
Number one. And I mean, you're in the field. You guys are dealing with businesses. You guys are dealing with it. Do you ever come across a customer who's like, oh my God, I'm really good? Until something bad happens, people don't pay attention.
The cyber budget miraculously shows up after the IR team leaves. It's
every
weird.
Time.
Yeah.
Every time. Yeah. Every time I've met or they go out of business. I mean, it's one of those two.
Right. Yeah.
But I think the only time I've ever had someone know they were going to be attacked was actually a guy that in the same day asked me to take away passwords. So I don't want to give it a lot of value on the statement of him knowing. But most people, to your point, Scott, like they genuinely think it's not going to happen to them. It's the same reason people do anything that's risky. They always believe in the positive outcome. It's just kind of the nature of people, especially with something they don't understand. Right. And so I think it's one of those things where that's the situation we see playing out is people don't understand. And to your point, Scott, which validates that first point 100%, they never expect to be the victim because they don't want to be. And so in their mind, it's not me. But to counter your point, though.
Forget about the companies. Let's talk about,
sure,
what the things that break my heart. It's just like every time I had a senior citizen or a small business or a nonprofit organization or a religious institution, everyone said, I can't believe I was a victim. And then when law enforcement gets brought into the fact, and this is what I call the second truth about cybersecurity, the chances of law enforcement coming in with a magic wand and fixing the problem, getting your money back, getting your data back, coming in with the magic decryptor key, I'm going to be honest with you, it's kind of slim to none. And that kind of broke my heart. I mean, because here we are, we're dealing with victims. I've dealt with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. I'm going to be honest, I didn't care. And I know you might say because I'm from New York, I'm law enforcement, because I was too concerned about, just like the other day, I dealt with a victim who lost $600,000 in a pig butchering scam. And they're calling me and they're pleading, please call the FBI. I want to get my money back. Please call Coinbase. So both of you, you're on the front end of this. You're dealing with companies and victims all the time. Tell me if I'm wrong. Is that a true statement or not? Can law enforcement get your stuff back and fix the problem?
Here's where I want to create a little dissonance in this, Scott. I would say, to your point, 96%, 97% of the time, no.
No.
You are, however, seeing a really good change in a lot of the ways these play out, where the faster they get involved, the feds have been peeling some money back from cyber gangs. You have seen them come out with decryptors through that. But to your point, it's a really small percentage of the time, and it really is dependent on how fast you know you've been pwned. Oftentimes, these threat actors talk you into wiring money somewhere, and they know the wire transfer times. They know the ACH settlement times. They're already way ahead of it. Been that way since the Zeus botnet, right? Early with Silas. And so you have a very interesting mix where, Scott, you're 100% right in that if you were looking at this being a chance of how you're going to get solved, an ounce of prevention is worth 15, 20 pounds of cure. And even then, the pounds of cure might not be there unless you need them day one, right when it happens, explosion minute zero. Anyways, go ahead.
And here I am. It's probably 2 years before I retire. I retire in 2018. I don't think the problem could have got worse in 2018. And here we are today. And I'm sitting here, I'm doing a presentation for a law firm. No, it's an insurance group. And they hire a retired FBI executive to be their front guy, because you want a retired guy to say, hey, if you would just do this and buy my product, you'd be okay. And he came over to me afterwards and he said to me, did you just tell the American public that we, the FBI, don't get your stuff back? And since he was retired, I was like, where have you been living?
Yeah.
People need to know this. It's just that simple. And now when we start going out and we deal with the third truth about cybersecurity, putting the bad guys in jail is just as hard. Why is that? Because where are the threat actors located? We're dealing with bad guys in Russia. We're dealing with bad guys in China, Iran, North Korea,
Malta,
West
all
Africa.
Right.
And okay, Malta, at least we got some cooperation there. You can get FBI guys on the ground. You're not going to be able to do that with these countries. So that
I want to
makes
pause a
people
sec. Travis Woods had a comment on the LinkedIn side, and anybody that wants their comment shown in the show, please come over to the Pax8 Cloud YouTube side, because that will be something we can bring right into the native platform. The LinkedIn side of mine is really just kind of.
Now, Travis is there to be good for interrupting us, okay?
It is. Travis said, is it better to bring in the feds sooner or later when you're dealing with a cyber attack? His question is,
let's take
this
question and expand on that.
Go.
Thank you, Travis. So let me ask both of you, when do you bring law enforcement in? When is the right time? Besides before, okay?
Yeah.
What has to happen for you to pick up the phone in your organization and contact law enforcement?
Oh, I got a Delta answer on that. You want to go first, Dom, and I'll go second?
Yeah. I mean, I think
he
for
says
me,
nervously in front of Scott.
I know. I'm going to be wrong, but that's okay. Like, I need to have a problem for them to solve, right? Like, there has to be something that, in my opinion, law enforcement can tackle, or assist me with, or be involved with, or comma space if the insurance company says to call the FBI or the law
Now, do
enforcement.
you think? Hold on for a second. Do you think, as an information security guy at your company, you have a problem? Do you think you can just pick up the phone and contact law enforcement? How do you think your C-suite in your office of general counsel is going to feel about that?
Yep.
I mean, they're gonna love it. I don't know about it.
They do love it.
Oh,
no, but I
they
do think, to
Yeah.
your point, Scott, one of the things I'll bring up to this is it's actually shifting in that you're starting to see IC3 be a denatured way of this coming out. You're seeing the forcing of that hand through legal with 8K forms. You're starting to see more of this information and getting the feds involved earlier be actually a positive things in a lot of ways. But you're right. In most cases, it's a cloistered and the legal team must approve, and I must know this next thing before I move forward. Yeah, exactly.
That's such a huge problem. Like, imagine if murder was reported at the rate that cybercrime is. Like,
right.
It's a huge problem.
It'd be like, I stepped over 9 bodies on the way to the donut store, right? And you're like, I'm not reporting this. This is bad. Somebody else.
They're not in the stats. Crime's down. We're good.
Yeah. We were also asked for one more pause. We're also asked by Laura. You made a comment, and we like to actually define our letters that we use, right? But here you actually said pig butchering scam. Do you want to explain it, Scott, or you want me to explain what a pig butchering scam is, just for her edification?
I think people have heard enough of you today. Okay.
That's fair. I'll shut up. I'm good with it. I still like me.
No,
go with it. Go. Lean it. Explain it.
Pig butchering is your typical twist on the romance scam, where they're getting you to invest in cryptocurrencies. It's happening. I've seen it happen to women. It's happening mostly to men. And all of a sudden you're meeting someone, they're tricking you into investing a little bit at a time over a large period of time. And, because they're not going to get you to invest $600,000 at once, they're going to get you to get a little bit in, and they're going to slaughter the pig, so to speak, with that. And these are being operated by organized criminal enterprises. They're happening out of Southeast Asia. And it's very hard to put these bad guys in jail and get the money back. But let me just go back
in on that.
No,
let's dig in on this concept of like it's hard to get these guys, because I've talked to a lot of people, less in the business space, but just general people I have these conversations with. Why can't we arrest these people? And we always, we know the answer to that, right? We've studied the answer to that. You definitely know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But in a nutshell, why is it so hard to get cyber criminals and arrest them and put them behind bars?
Because they're in foreign countries that do not actually cooperate with the United States. With everything going on right now with Iranian terrorist organizations getting into critical infrastructures, they're not going to recognize our grand jury subpoenas. They're not going to cooperate with U.S. And when I bring this up in front of people, they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't really ever know that." But I want to get to Travis here. Travis asked a great question, which led us to, when do you contact law enforcement? Now, both of you, can you agree that it's a very bad day for an organization when you have to pick up the phone and call the FBI or the Secret Service? Can we all agree on that?
It's fair.
Yeah, for sure.
Out of need, for sure. Yeah.
What do you do when we contact you? Because let me tell you, that's really how the game is played today, because it's all about data exfiltration. It's showing up on the dark web. It comes across us. Yep. You have traffic beaconing out of your network. And now the FBI shows up at your door and the Secret Service comes over. And now you cannot control that narrative. And I have brought the bad news to so many organizations here, and it goes back. How did this happen to me? We have XDR, we have MDR, we have EDR. We had all this stuff. We had endpoint protection.
No.
And they still got victimized.
You're telling me a new story. This is blowing my mind right now, Scott.
I thought we were cyber immune when we bought that product.
I thought we were hyper
what the marketing guy
said.
As I hyper cyber immune.
That's what I was told. Yeah.
Well, listen, and it's wrapped in a bullet. It's wrapped in a blockchain wrapper with a zero trust filling. That's what I hear all the
filling,
time.
fulfilling in there. Yeah. No, you bring up a good point though. Is that, and to that point, a lot of times the FBI have been ignored. Right, a good friend of mine, Tom, who ran a cyber squad here in a certain area. He said he would get ignored. Literally, companies would say, "We're not talking to you." He'd be sat in the lobby for 4 hours waiting. He's like I need to talk to somebody. And so you have this aspect of, I think, a shifting aspect. I do want to call up some comments, right? Black
Please,
Suit Consulting.
let's get this interactive.
Yeah. it popped up and said better to build connections with law enforcement before the incident. I totally agree. You get into, should be part of the plan to begin with Travis Woods. Nailed it 100%. Darren, who's the cyber smart guy, says know your FBI person is before you have a problem, not when you're in the middle of a problem, and certainly not when Scott has to come knocking at your door, right, to have these conversations from that perspective. So just a lot of this conversation all leading towards be there before, which is what you said we couldn't answer first, right, Scott? You limited the answer set down to you can't answer before, only after. But continue with your thoughts. So you wrote a book about a lot of these theories, and you've been talking about it now and having that conversation. Well, tell me a little bit about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me get to the fourth truth, and I appreciate you plugging my book and everything.
I try. I'm a giver.
You're doing that. Last time I had the book, I almost hit you with it.
You almost did. Yeah.
It's a nice size. But let's get this straight. And I want to ask the audience, how does that make you feel that you're not getting your stuff back? Nobody's going to jail. I retired in 2018. I didn't think the cybercrime problem could get any worse in 2018.
Sure.
And now look at us. We're spending more and more money to stay safe. So how does that make everybody feel? Well, I was a former employee assistance program counselor, so I was very good at feigning empathy. So I want to look for some empathetic feelings over here. How do we all feel?
I think a lot of people made a lot of money on a challenge not solved. Yeah. If I was going to be candid.
Yeah. It means what we're doing isn't working. And that was kind of the epiphany that I had during my career. And the epiphany was, hey, wait a second. I discovered that almost 90% of what I dealt with could have been prevented if my end users were only armed with a few key pieces of information. Now, I know I am completely oversimplifying the problem. But things that are happening to end users, things that are happening, and so many of us online, forget about who we are in the world of information security. We have elderly parents, we have kids, we have family members, we all know small businesses. A lot of us are connected to different religious organizations. That's who the cyber criminals are going after. And that's where I've spent the past 6 years of my life kind of dedicated to doing that. In the meantime, I built security programs for Fortune 500 companies, and I overcharge them to tell them very basic things, which I'm amazed I can still pull that off. But I mean, guys, this is my life, and this is what I challenge everyone. If 90% of what we dealt with could have been prevented, why don't you just do this first?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring it down to that people part we alluded to early on, right? Is all of this still comes back to a human problem, right? This all comes back to a lack of education. A lot of us also leans back to not being secure by default, not being secure by design. So there are some elements outside of the human problem that, to your point, are being summarized in this. But you're not wrong about if we could teach people those challenges and teach people those things to look out for, which is really what your mission is, right, Scott, is that bringing it down to if we can get just the human level, mom, grandpa, my cousin, and Bill, down to understanding these core concepts, then this gets a lot easier. Is that kind of the premise of the pitch there?
It's really kind of demystifying it and taking it down to a level. Okay, listen. There's plenty of training that's out on the market. I don't want to name names, but almost every company that I know does their mandatory 20 minutes of cybersecurity modules a year. Okay? A year. And they're like, hey, we're good and secure, and we're going to throw you in some. But nobody's talking about the why. That's it.
Yeah.
So nobody's breaking it down and going into the fact that just the other day, I spoke to an individual. He contacted me. When people contact me, they want to hire me. I'm like, there's nothing for me to hire me to do. I'm hospice. Okay? I'm not getting your money back. I'm not putting the bad guys in jail. They begged for me, hey, can you put me in touch with an FBI agent, just like the guy who lost $600,000. I contact my buddy with the FBI, and I'm like, hey, can someone talk to this guy? And he goes, look, we got 40 calls this week, and the largest victim was $14 million. Okay? $14 million. Now, it's what I do is I take those stories and I try to translate them into a way that's going to get people to rip your heart out and go, oh my God, that could have been my father. That could have been my sister. That could have been my brother. And I'm going to be honest with you today. That is where I'm going to call out and I'm going to say that training is failing. It's not about training. It's about the awareness. And that's why I've created what I call the cybersecure mindset. And I've really been pushing that out to be able to tell people, like, look, during my decades with the FBI, I discovered maybe 8 things that if I can go back in time and sit with my victims, that were 8 key killer points. And if they just would have done that, they wouldn't have been a victim. But you still need a good trusted technology partner like you guys, because let me tell you, I can't segment networks. I can't tell you what to look for. But I'm telling you, everyone who goes out and they have MSPs or MSSPs, and I look at all the products and services, I'm like, all of them, that wouldn't have prevented any of my victimizations.
Yeah.
Only key pieces of information. And it's not like I'm holding that key pieces of information in. I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, and in fact, I think you are even offering, if anybody reaches out, if you're watching this and want to reach out, Scott, what do you have for people? It sounds like you're making this book $1 million and you won't share any of it with people, as I understand.
No, I have a lifetime subscription to Darren Mott's podcast. Sorry, Darren.
Since you...
Listen, for anyone over here, and here's what you need to do. You need to take a picture of the 3 of us on screen right now. Hit me up in LinkedIn, and I'm going to send you. I recorded the audio copy in my sweet Southern accent.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm going to need that.
And the digital copy of my book. And please, you know what? And take advantage of this because, but I just want to preface it. If you're looking to read a good book by an FBI agent who saved the day, put a lot of bad guys in jail, don't read it. That's not me. That's not who I am. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. You know who I am? I'm the guide. I'm the guy who sat behind the stages. I looked at thousands of elements and I really kind of stacked them up and I said, hey, here's your simple plan to protect you and your family. And that's what I tell everyone in the world of information security. Know what pig butchering is. Know what the latest scams are. Put that oxygen mask on yourself. And my goal and my true intentions are to be that guy to put that message out to the masses. Because unfortunately, I know all the big companies, and let me say this, I want to try not to be too sarcastic. All the big companies have the best and latest in 20 minutes a year of cybersecurity videos. That wasn't too sarcastic, was it?
No, it's perfect. Yeah, once a year is good enough for me.
Point.
But I want to be that
surgeon trained.
I want to be that person to provide that information to the people who don't have access to that. And that's what I've been working on for 6 years on the side. I keep getting interrupted by large organizations who like when I come in and train them. But that is
terrible.
No, but that's my intentions. When I was with the FBI, I couldn't help enough people. I couldn't get their money back. I couldn't put the bad guys in jail. And now, if you just have a few key pieces of information, and let's kind of go through just a few key pieces that people need to know. And I want to see if you guys, both of you, agree with me. And I think we haven't let Dom talk at all. I kind of feel bad. I don't feel bad for, Matt, but I do.
It's fair.
I do
deserve that. Yeah.
So Dom, the number one thing is that I like to say, and chime in with me on this and help me out here, is social engineering is the number one tool in the cyber criminals toolbox. Agree?
I agree. Yeah, that and OSINT. I would put OSINT gathering right there at the top with it too.
Yeah. But when we talk about social engineering, what do we talk about? Well, I got a great email protection on my... That's not where it's coming. We're going through text messages. We're going through telephone calls locally in Franklin, Tennessee. Everyone's getting a telephone call from the sheriff's department demanding money. The elderly are giving that up. I have people getting robocalls, and both you guys, I want you to chime in on this. I had a victim who is over on Telegraph, hears Donald Trump say,
oh
and
yeah,
this is
Ooh.
that they need to put all of their money into Trump coins, and they use AI. And this 57-year-old woman sends $30,000 to one of the countries in Eastern Europe. I mean, where do you see artificial intelligence going with this?
Yeah, that's a huge shift, because when I first started being on the receiving end of phone scams, which I get like 10 a day, like I don't know, somebody leaked my number, but what it was the thick foreign accent from the countries we were just talking about. Like, you immediately knew that is not the White House calling about my expiring Social Security number, right? Like, that's not, no. But now I think in this AI phase, and AI is a great thing, don't get me wrong, I'm not just openly shitting on it, but there's a bad use for everything, and we've covered it extensively. And voice matching or voice generation has become immaculate, right? Literally with anything you want, you could grab 10 seconds of the game, download this recording, you'd have all three of our voices perfected, right? You could have us say whatever you want. And that's a totally different ballgame, especially when I think about like my parents and grandparents who are going to be on the receiving end of these calls.
Yeah. And it doesn't change anything that you're starting to see them defined as illegal, right? You saw the recent one with a Biden call that was marked as actually an illegal use of telecommunications from that perspective. You had the same thing for these type of things. Threat actors don't care. Threat actors don't care. They're going to call grandma and take money. Right? That's the challenge.
About, hey, we need more regulations and more rules. And this
threat actors don't care. No, they don't. Absolutely. Oh man.
And now,
no, it's a great question.
So yes.
No, it's a great question. We're good. Continue on, instructor.
Social engineering, number one tool. Almost all of my victims get somehow they're tricked into doing something, and it goes in so deep. Because now you're getting that, okay, you're getting your good 4 minutes of email training, but do you know everything that's going on with the QuickBooks scam and the seasonal scams and the romance scams? Yes.
Oh, you nailed it. You know, one of the things that I love, so if you look at frameworks for this answer, CIS 14.1 doesn't say send 2 minutes of training once a year. It says train your people so they know how to respond to a cyber act or a cyber incident. Those are delineable pieces. And just simply sending 2 minutes isn't validating they know what they're talking about. And to your point, Scott, for everyone, knowing the latest scams, how are they going to attack? What do you expect? What kind of ACH changes for COVID? What are those type of things? So I think there's a lot of truth in that. Social engineering is almost the root of all of it, whether it be click on this email link or whether it be go to this website.
Well, it's all imagine being a sizable company. You're subject to a lot of attacks, right? AP gets all kinds of bullshit, right? Like, that's just the reality of the world. How would you not look at the attacks that you're responding to or the potential incidents and turn that into immediate training? Here's what we're actually seeing at our company. Or, if you're working with individuals, here's what the scams we saw last week, right? Like real up to the minute, not 2 minute canned garbage.
You mean threat intelligence and understanding? Goodness gracious.
Yeah. What?
Well, my brothers and sisters who are in the world of information security, it's the hardest job in the world. I mean, I'm seeing companies firing, laying off, cutting cost over here. And now who has time to deal with this? Because now we got to deal with the regulations, okay? We got to deal with, we got to,
look at CMMC.
We got to be SOX compliant. We got to be PCI compliant. We got to be HIPAA compliant. You know what? All my victims were compliant, but they weren't secure. And I'm not telling them to go out and spend $1 gazillion. Change your mindset. And you know how I knew I was right? It was during COVID. I happened to be doing, and I don't even want to name the vendor. They hired me to be a lead magnet. And after I did this show with them, they said to me, hey, look, we just want to talk to you. We really weren't happy about something you said. So, as an retired FBI agent, I have a checklist in crisis. And the first thing to do is go, did they pay me first? Like, okay, yeah, they paid me. All right, that's good. I said, what did you not like about what I said? You said that 90% of cybercrime victimizations easily could have been prevented. Why are people aren't going to want to buy my product? That's when I knew I was onto something. That's when I knew I couldn't work for a company. The only thing, and I tell everyone, I will never ever call you trying to sell you a product that I didn't build myself. That's it. You know what? My life's
But
bad.
I got your call about Trump coin yesterday. I put all my money in it. What are you talking about? I got the AI. In fact, we had a comment in here from Darren. I'm not trying to start a fight. I swear I'm not trying to start a fight. But he says AI tried to mimic Scott's voice. He said AI tried to mimic Scott's voice, but couldn't figure out how to get it to stop talking. It was a permanent thing. I think you might be onto something about this this challenge. No, it's brilliant, man. And you're right, Scott. This mindset of cybersecurity, and to your point about being secure but compliant. You can be extremely compliant to some policy set that doesn't make you secure. Right, you can be abject of the forest for the trees by that. So, anyway, Scott, I didn't mean to cut you off, or maybe
No. I want to open this up to the audience and you guys and everything like that. You know, for anyone who connects with me who does, I'm going to send you, a copy of the book, and also send you. I've created a framework, and this is what I tell people: is hey, here's the 10 things. Go do your own research. And this is what you should implement into your cybersecurity awareness program. This is built on what I've discovered with 1,000 victimizations. You don't need me. Go to LinkedIn, go watch my videos. And then once out of every 1,000 of these, I get a big call and someone's like, can you do it for me? I'm like, absolutely. But I never sell it. That's why I live a passion project life.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, brother. I mean, 100%. Dom and I both, we're just here to educate. Once you do that and start driving the movement and change, then people either get on board or they don't, right?
And that's what I appreciate
anyways,
about
I love
what you
that
guys
about you.
do. It's so important that we're out here and, we're contributing to thought leadership. And we're not sitting here going, because so much of thought leadership is disguised as, hey, let me tell you this, and if you just would have had that, that's great.
Yeah, that's how I used to have hair, was because of those ads. Yeah, no, 100% right. And thought leadership means challenging how we think about things today. And I do like that that's where your take was. Like a LinkedIn user wrote this giant kind of thing saying, short of a spec ops raid on these fortified compounds in Myanmar, nothing will stop these organized crime gangs from continuing their pig butchering onslaught. Too much money's been made with close to zero risk, and since the grunts doing the actual scamming are essentially in captivity, it's not like we're going to catch them traveling to the French Riviera where we can pop them. And so, to your point, we're driving this conversation and helping people understand and be educated about these things, and that's why I wanted you on the show, and honestly, that's why I've followed your career over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's just awesome watching you get to go educate, predict, teach, and help people understand and change mindsets, right? Because that's the only way you get through a paradigm shift, in my opinion, is a different mindset. So I love it.
Tomorrow
morning, how do
morning,
people connect with you? Yeah, go ahead.
You can connect with me on LinkedIn as Augenbaum. I'm out there. My name, just look me up. Tomorrow morning, I'm getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to talk to about 1,000 students in India. Why?
That's cool.
I love that.
Because they're interested. They're interested.
Yeah.
It's just that important, and that's the thing that it's all about. It's spreading the message.
We just did an event.
We did.
At
we were in detention not too long ago.
I mean, we did end up in detention because we got a little too threat actory, but it was amazing to see how engaged sort of the next generation, and those are the next generation practitioners that are going to come in and be defenders and be responders. And it was really cool to see that engagement's there. And really, I came out of it hoping we get the industry ready for them, right? Ready to bring them in and train them and let them grow.
Absolutely. So important over here to really build the future generation.
I do love that I just watched Scott messing with my producers by bouncing in.
No,
and out
I
of his
wasn't. I
center
moved my
box. It was
camera, and I'm like, I
fantastic.
just can't get back. And I feel so bad.
I watched him back there. Enhance.
Poor Jen's petrified of what's coming out of my mouth, I think, you know?
Oh, no, it's so good. I think you just had them all lost in it. No, so if you could leave one thing out of this conversation about, like, what? Anything. I don't care. What would be the one thing you'd say to people to protect themselves, Scott, if you could just say it one more time?
The true secret to cybersecurity is that most cybercrime victimizations easily could have been prevented if my end users were only armed with a couple of key pieces of awareness. This is what I call the cyber secure mindset. Follow me for more. I'm on a journey. I don't know where it's taking me, but I want to keep the world safe.
And perhaps Dom and I have taken a different tack that 90-ish% of all these could have been avoided had the right people be educated on how to configure it and how to set users up for success so they're not the ones that have to make those decisions. And I think it's just two halves of the same problem, right, Scott, in that conversation.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you guys for everything that you do. You're in the trenches. You're talking about, you're there fighting in the trenches, telling funny hexadecimal jokes that I don't get.
I got a real doozy of one, too, that Jason Slagle told me. No, I tease. Dom, one of the fun things I want to remind you of real quick was when we were at this public school, and I don't know if we want to name them or not, in fact, we had to switch off to a cell phone just because they couldn't even fight through the layers of the onion that they had placed for themselves to go to my malicious site. I was quite approved of how much they had to do to try to allow my malicious attack to happen. It was very, very good.
And then failed. So it was.
And then failed. Yeah, in front of 5
in a good way.
students. It was great. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So, anyways, appreciate you being here, Scott. I love your work.
So much,
Keep
everyone.
doing it. Please connect with Scott if you haven't already. And Dom, if you want to close us out, brother.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us. This was a fantastic show. Scott's information should be right down below this video. Please do connect with him on LinkedIn. There's a huge amount of information he shares there every day. With that in mind, that is our show. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you all have a fantastic weekend. But before we get there, don't forget to join us next week. We're going to have Kyla Guru from Bits and Bytes on. And Matt, I know you remember her and her team. How much did we raise for them last year in the beard shave?
They received, I think, 20,000, 15. So they're at 40,000 that we've influenced.
$40,000
alone.
They do some amazing
We're gonna see
work.
where it went.
Yeah, in terms of educating and empowering. So make sure you join us. That's our show. We'll see you next week.